Okay, we got this 2012 Ram 1500 with a 5.7. We will be changing axle seals today. And you can see all of the caked on grease and grime. Obviously the oil has been seeping out. The other side's much worse. So what you got to do here, get this thing jacked up and take the wheel off. And then I take the brake assembly off. You could take the caliper, the pads, then the bracket apart separately. I just do it all together. 10 millimeter bolts, sorry, maybe 11 millimeter bolts for the brake caliper and 21 millimeter bolts for the caliper bracket itself. Hang it up, get it out of the road. Do that for both sides, and then grab yourself a bucket because we're gonna need to take that axle differential cover off to gain access to the C-clips that hold these axle shafts in. And you can see it's got a little bit of play, not too much in and out, but that's going to allow us to pull these axles out and get to the seals. So get your wheels off, get your brakes off, and then we'll head under the truck. Okay, so we'll grab ourselves a 13 millimeter socket. You may be able to get to all of them, you might not. I'm using this little impact swivel from Olsa Tools to get in here. We're just going to take all these bolts out, stick your bucket underneath. I like to leave one bolt in that's about halfway loose, like one on the top, one on the bottom. That way the cover doesn't just like fly off and it pukes oil everywhere. But take all those out, leave two in just loose, and then you may need to use a pry bar and a hammer or something to get in here and break the seal free from all the silicone. We'll drain all that oil out. Once it's all drained out, take the cover off. Okay, so what we need to do now is put the get the transmission into neutral so that we can spin this thing around. We need to spin the diff around until you see this 8 millimeter bolt, and that thing there holds this pin in place inside of the carrier for your spider gears, and we want to remove that so that we can push the axles in further. If you take a look in here, you can see the ends of your axles are right here, and there's little C-clips that hold those axles in and keep them from sliding out the end of the axle tube. So we need to obviously remove that so that we can remove the axles from the tube and get to the seals. So grab yourself an 8 millimeter ratchet and socket, or a wrench. I'd probably avoid using a wrench, but if that's what you got and it works, it works. Take that out, pull this pin out. Just watch when you're spinning this carrier around to gain access to the C-clips, that the spider gears don't fall out of it when you're turning it, because they will now move, that the pin doesn't hold them in place. So. I gotta go get a magnet. It's just gonna be stuck to oil. Maybe it does need to go in. Okay, so I'm just going to, you see, and I push the axles inward so we could drop those C-clips out of there. Now, when I pull the axles out, I don't want these spider gears that are inside the carrier to fall out. So what I do is just slide this pin back in here, and I'll just temporarily have that in place so that when I spin this carrier around, it's sitting like this, and that's fine like that. Now the gears can't fall out, right? So now I can go ahead and slide these axles out to gain access to my seals. And I'm just going to take a look here, see what these look like. Going to make sure that I have the correct part before. Obviously you want to check this stuff before you go ahead and rip everything apart, but for some reason I wasn't sure if the dealership actually gave me the right part or not. It was questionable, so, but it looks like we got the right piece. That's the seal, so this side goes in. Part number 52111198 Apple Bob. So it appears to be the right seal, which is good. I'm happy about that. So I'm going to yank this axle out now. Lift up. It was just those splines were getting caught on the housing. You can just set them like that. Just watch they don't fall over and damage the splines at all. So now we need to get these out, and they're just a press in, but they're fairly easy to get out. You can use a pry bar, or there is actually a seal removal tool that's like a hook, and it's got a handle on it, or you can get one that hooks up to a ratchet. But pry bar works just as good if you get a long one. And just watch though, if you look inside of there, you can see these roller bearings for the axle shaft itself. Do not grab a hold of those when you are removing it, because you'll absolutely damage that. I've seen it before. I've seen guys grab a hold of that cage and ruin them. Now, your vehicle probably has a backing plate, so you might not be able to get as much swing with the bar, and we're going to have to deal with that on the other side. So I may have to start on the edge here and then hit it with a hammer and get it to go out that way. This thing's going to put up a bit of fight. This truck does have over 400,000 kilometers on it, so as you can see, very, very rusty truck, or very, very rusty seals and all that stuff. They've been in here for a long time.
Probably original.
There you go. That's what it looks like. Now we want to just clean our surface up, make sure that no dirt or metal pieces that may have fallen into the bearings or in the axle, clean everything. And then we can just take our new seal and we will get something that will fit over this. You can either use, if you had like a socket or something to sit on there, that would work good too. You could just get it started and use a hammer. Just have to really watch and be careful with it. It's something that takes a little bit of skill so that you don't absolutely destroy this thing. So, but that'll go in there like so, and we'll get everything cleaned up and get her installed. Okay, so I got myself a socket here. It's a 2-inch socket. Fits quite nicely around there. I usually use the special service tool from Chrysler, but I don't work there anymore. So we got this surface somewhat decently clean, got all the rust off. You can see the new seal from, these are Mopar, come with the sealant on them. And like I say, just make sure that all your bearings, there's no chunks of rust or metal or anything like that in there. And then we just line this thing up and get it started here. And then we just hammer this thing in until it bottoms out. There you go, looks good to me. You can hear it too when it bottoms out, eh? So we got that in. Go clean up, do the other side, same thing. Then we're ready to put our axles back in and start going backwards. Like I say, with the, your vehicle may have emergency brake shoes and backing plates and stuff. This thing's pretty clapped out, doesn't have any of that stuff. So it works in my benefit. It's not stuff that's gonna get in the way, so. Okay, so I'm gonna take all this silicone off of this differential cover right now. I'm gonna use a razor blade to get most of it off. And then for the rest of it, I just use these bristle discs. They're made by 3M. They're a roll-lock disc. And you just go along and take all this stuff off. And I'll do the same thing up here, but when I clean this surface, I put a rag over the gears to keep all the contaminants from getting in there, because it makes a mess. You could use like a wire brush. There's no problem with that. This is all steel, so it's pretty hard. You're not gonna have an issue. It's not gonna mark that or nothing. So yeah, we'll get this all cleaned up. Yeah. And silicone on right now around the pan, or around the cover, I guess. Doesn't have to be a crazy amount. I put a little bit more than I should have. But once you get a decent bead on there, you just go around with your finger and smooth it out. Make sure you go around all the holes. Try not to smear it into the holes like I did, but sometimes it's inevitable. And once you get this all smeared around, we're gonna head over there, stick this thing on, get our bolts started. The set time on this is pretty long. You can get gasket maker that sets in 5 minutes if you wanted. but that's fine. This will work good. So we sneak this cover up here, find our holes. Get a couple bolts started, and then we'll go around and run these things down. Okay, so we got, just put the axles in. One thing to note, the back side of the towing ring, there was a lot of dirt and grease and stuff that was in there on the axle itself. So clean the axle, make sure that that's all good. We don't want any dirt that's gonna get in and around the seal, right? So that, and another thing to note is when you're putting the axle in, there's a garter spring on the back of the seal that keeps the tension of the seal on the shaft, and you don't wanna knock that off. So, you know, just watch when you're putting it in, don't be all rough and bumping the seal and all that stuff. So once you get it in there, you may need to lift or lower the axle just to get it to slip into the right spot, and then turn it and push it in to match the splines. You can see now we're engaged. We've got both axles in. So the next thing that I need to do is spin this thing around so that we can put our C-clips back in. And I'm gonna go this way. Just enough to get this out. Now our axles hold. They are holding our spider gears in place. So you may need to push in on the axle just a little bit to gain enough clearance for these clips, and then you just push them back. So I'll show you on the other side here once again. You can see we don't have enough, you can't see where that slot is until I push in. And then you can see it. Now we should be able to slip that in and then push our axle back. So now that we've got our C-clips in, we can get this pin installed again. And the hole, we need it to line up with our hole, right? So that will be on the other side. So I need to go this way. And if your spider gears don't line up and the pin doesn't line up, just turn the axle a little bit and it will. So we'll get this thing spinning around this way. Just enough there so that we can get our pin back in there. And you may need to rotate that pin in there so you can get the bolt to line up and go in. But we'll get this thing in here, snug it down. You don't want to, I tighten it a decent amount. I don't know the torque spec on it, but yeah, you don't want it to be like too loose, because if it falls out, you're gonna have a bad day, you'll destroy the differential. And if it's too tight, you may end up stripping it, and the next time you need to take it off, it could be a nightmare. So I know some guys do put Loctite on them. I'll just put it in snug. Then once we get this in here, we'll clean up the surface, the mating surface between the differential and the cover. We will give this thing a little cleaning, make sure that we don't have any dirt, debris, or silicone or any of that crap in there. There we go. And then we can goop it all up, put the cover on, bolt it down, fill it up full of oil. And that'll, besides putting the brakes and the wheels on, that'll be pretty much it. So I got that thing snugged up. I'm gonna lower it down now, put it back into park so I can shut the ignition off. Okay, so we've got our cover sealed up. Now we're gonna grab this, we're gonna take this fill plug out. Drain plug's over here. We have a 14mm hex key, 1/2-inch drive. I've cleaned out that that plug first so that we get good engagement with our hex key. And now it's coming out. We're gonna fill this thing up. It calls for 2.2 liters of 75 W140, but that is just for this differential. So there are different differentials depending on what came in your truck. I think there's 3 or 4 different diffs that run different fluids. So the best way to do it is call your dealer with your VIN, tell them, be like, hey, this is what I got. What size diff do I have in there? What fluid do I need? And they will look it up and tell you, yep, you need 75 W140 or you need 75 W90 or whatever. So, and then also get them to tell you the fluid spec as well. I'm sure they're all relatively close. Every one of these Rams that I bought between 2005 and 2022, grab 3 bottles because it's going to take just over 2 liters. That's usually what it takes. So I'm just going to open this up here. One other thing to keep in mind too is if you have a limited slip diff, you need to buy friction mod, which is an additive that you pour in there with this stuff, and that works into the clutches because there'll be a clutch pack in there. If you don't add that, your differential will chatter when you go around corners. It'll start biting and binding. So it's very important if you have that you know that you have that, and put that additive in there or you're gonna have a bad day. I don't use any like special tools really. I don't, some of them you need like a hose. You could use like a little hose to stick on the end of the cap. And that way you can get all of it in there, but usually I just sort of line it up and then let her rip. So there we go. If you want to grab me the oil bucket there. Normally you have a bucket underneath of that so that you can fill it up till it pours out. But
this is on level ground, right?
Yeah. I'm going to try to catch some of that. And yeah, you just fill it up till it starts pouring out. Just wait until it stops pouring out. Make sure your plug's clean. You can put some thread tape around the plug if you'd like for extra reassurance that it's going to seal. Or you could just stick it back in and then put it in until it's pretty much flush. And that's pretty much it, guys. All right, just stick the brakes back on, put the wheels back on, and take it for a drive. Everything should be good. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comment section below. And as always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one.